Hello everyone! So today I'm going to be showing you some of the books from my specially set aside bookshelf that it's like where I put books that I get that I have they're like my impulse buy books, or they're just books that I've gotten. Yeah, they're mostly impulse buys. Or, they're books that I have not read, but, I've bought and I intend to read them, but I'm not going to actually put them on my main bookshelf. Like, this is my main bookshelf. And most of these books I have read. Like, pretty much all of them I have read. Or most of the books, I know enough about the story that I want to keep it on this bookshelf. Or, like, I know, I know the story. Or, like, for example, with this Star Wars book right here. This is the full-on trilogy of the original 3 Star Wars movies. I have not read these all the way through. But, obviously, like, I know the story of Star Wars so well. I've seen all 3 original movies so many times. I just want the book. So, obviously, that's not going to go on my haven't read yet bookshelf, But, the books that I put on my yet to read bookshelf are books that I usually have no idea anything about the story, or I may know a little bit, but not enough to where I'm like, sure, you can go on my bookshelf. No. So yeah, that's kind of the definition that I've given to this specific bookshelf that's set aside in this little corner of my room over here. And I actually just now counted how many books I have on that little shelf. 55. Yeah, I think I need to stop going to book sales, and I just need to get down and just start reading. Let's do that. And I will, eventually. But right now, I'm actually going to show you some of the books that are on that shelf. Not all of them I've bought at half-price clearance sales, which I've gotten quite a few from those sales, or I've gotten some of them from, other book sales that are not the half-price clearance sale. Some of the books I've gotten from, other, sales that libraries do, because usually some of the libraries in my area, they do a Friends of the Library book sale or something like that, and I always try to go to those because, obviously the prices are really good. They're about the same as the half-price clearance sale. It's, $2 is the most you'll pay for any one book, and, mostly everything else is 25 cents, 50 cents, or, something like that. It's, really cheap. So, out of the 55 books that are on that shelf, I've gotten, let me see, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. Only 9. That's actually really surprising to me. I have about 9 or so here that I've gotten at half price, the half price clearance sales over the few years that I've been going to these sales that are set aside. So I'm just gonna kind of show you what I've gotten. It's kind of this is kind of a book haul video, because it's I thought about doing book haul videos, but I never got around to doing them. And so this is kind of showing a book haul from my past clearance sales. Not all of these books are from the exact same clearance sale. Some of them are, I actually have one book here that's from my very first clearance sale, and I have not gotten around to reading it, surprisingly. And yeah, and there's just a few others that are from some of my most recent sales that I've been to. So let's get started. So the first one I'm going to show you, this is actually the one that was from my very first clearance sale. I went by myself, and it just looked interesting. So this one it's called The Daughter of Prophecy, and I believe it's by a Christian author. Yes, it is. Yeah. And I had looked it up. Thankfully, that's the good thing with bringing your phone to these sales, is you can research it and kind of see, oh, is this the kind of book for me? Or, For me being a Christian, I usually kind of like getting stuff by Christian authors, but I mean, I won't all the time. I mean, obviously I have Star Wars books, I have Sherlock Holmes, I got Nancy Drew, you know. I like getting good, wholesome or just like really good, like, entertaining books. And so, but this looked interesting though, and I still plan on reading it, even though it's been like, I guess 4 years I've had this book and I still have not picked it up. But, soon, maybe soon. I think the first thing that drew me to this book was that, like, kind of the cover, it looked really cool, and the title sounded awesome, and I read the description. It's been a while. I should have read the description before filming this, but apparently it's like this awesome fantasy novel, and it's about this girl that is born into like this realm, and there's like these evil creatures that are trying to kill her and hunt her down, and she literally is like the daughter of prophecy, like she was prophesied to like save the realm or something like that. But don't quote me on that. That's just me kind of from what I'm getting right here. So yeah. Oh, and there's dragon hunting in it. There's dragons. That's cool. So yeah, there's like these demons and dragons and things that are trying to fight her, and she's got to stand up and be the daughter of prophecy and save them. And another thing that made me want to get it also is because I found out it's actually the first book in, the author planned this for being the first book in a series. So I was like, okay, at least it's the first book. So obviously, I'll get it. And if I like it, I'll look up and see what the other books in this series were. So, I liked it. It looks pretty good. So I can't wait to actually start reading this. So that was one. This other book I got. Oh yeah, and I should probably also say the names of the authors as well. So Miles Owens wrote this. Don't know if it's any good yet, but it looks good, so I can't wait to try it. So that was from my very first half-price books clearance sale that I got. The next one that I went to, I believe I went with my friend Jessica, because I remember specifically getting this book. It's called The Thief Lord, and it's a book that probably a lot of people read when they were like 10 to 12 years old. It's like kind of that age range, and I've been wanting to see the movie, and I think I tried to start it. I tried to find it, but I didn't. I couldn't. I should probably try harder. But it looks interesting. Like, the story sounds interesting. And I remember reading... I'm trying to remember. I've read other... 2 books by this author. Don't get mad at me for butchering her name, but it's Cornelia Funk. I don't even know. I don't even want to say her last name wrong. I know though that she's, I believe, a German author, and her books are, they're translated from German to English. So she's originally, she publishes them first in Germany, and then obviously, over here. And she's the best-selling author of the Inkheart series. So basically, if you haven't heard of The Thief Lord, you've probably heard of Inkheart. And Inkheart is a series of 3 books. It's Inkheart, Ink Spell, I believe, and then Ink Death. I read the first 2, but I never got around to reading Ink Death. So who knows? I may actually try to reread that series someday. I don't know. I loved the movie, though. Inkheart was a pretty good movie, and I may try to watch The Thief Lord, but I don't know when I'm going to get around to reading this, but, it looks like a pretty easy read, and I definitely want to try reading this, because it looks like a fun time, and the story sounds really interesting, too. So, it probably is. So, we got that. The next one, to be honest, I kind of draw a blank on this when I look at this. I'm pretty sure I got this book at a half-price clearance sale. I'm actually quite sure that I got it at the very last one that I went to. I think. Did I? Oh, no, wait. Never mind. I got this actually at a different sale. Now that I remember correctly, I got this at a sale at a library that's close to the town that I live in. But you know what? I'll show it anyway because you're probably curious. It's called Lady in Waiting. I don't know. I know it sounds... and it's also by a Christian author as well. It's kind of one of those Christian historical romances, and I know that I shouldn't put too much stock in those kinds of books, because it's just like, I'm always usually disappointed if I try to read those and I'm just like, this really does suck, doesn't it? I don't know. Maybe this will be different. You know, maybe I'll just keep going in the vicious cycle of like, oh, it's a Christian historical romance. It may not be so bad. Turns out being kind of stupid, but I don't know. You never know. What kind of drew me to it was the plot line does sound interesting, and what's even more interesting about this is it's apparently tells two stories. Apparently it's this woman who, in modern day times, is like having trouble with like her marriage or something, and then she goes through like an old box and like finds this old ring that belonged to an ancestor of hers, and she starts looking up the story behind it and this ancestor, and then it like goes back and forth between modern day time, and then it goes back into like the 16th century when this ring, you know, came into play in like the story of her ancestor. And so it's kind of cool. It looks interesting because it's like about you know, because it's kind of like, you know, about a modern day woman, and then it's also about her ancestor back in the 16th century, and it kind of goes back and forth, so it sounds interesting. Also, I kind of like that the tagline of the book is, love is a choice you make every day, which I definitely agree with that statement. That's a very good kind of quote to get behind. I definitely believe that, and it seems like a pretty good story, so I can't wait to try that out. But that was not from a clearance sale. I kind of misplaced it, but, you know, glad I showed it to you. So this next one I actually have had for a couple of years, not as long, or maybe as long, I can't remember, as The Daughter of Prophecy. I don't know, I may have gotten it from either the clearance sale, the same clearance sale that I got that from, or maybe the next one. I honestly don't know. But this story, it's called The Blue Bottle Club by Penelope J. Stokes, sorry. It looked interesting. I think what grabbed me first was like the cover and also the title. I kind of liked it. I don't know. Also, because I love collecting like glass bottles and stuff. Like, other than a book sale, you will find me, you know, wasting my money on antiques and stuff, especially like glass bottles. I'm a sucker for those. And so it just looked interesting. And the cool thing about this book is it's a compilation of like, I think 4 stories. Let me see. But yeah, it's 4 different stories or something like that. And let me see. Yes. Because it follows 4 friends during the time of the Great Depression. And I believe what they do is they create their own little club, and they like write down their dreams of what they want to do in the future on pieces of paper, and they shove those pieces of paper in a blue bottle, and they hide it up in the attic of one of the friends' house, and they just leave it there for years and years and years. And then like in modern day times, I believe, or like, oh yeah, like 60 or so years later, a news reporter stumbles upon the bottle and kind of starts looking into who these women were. And the reporter starts looking for the 4 friends, and then you get to see the story of each of those friends and where life takes them. So it looks like a very interesting story. You know, it says it's about friendship, faith, and loving God. So you never know, it may actually be a pretty good read. Yeah. I also forgot to mention the name of the author of the previous book that I just showed you, the Lady in Waiting. Also, Lady in Waiting is by Susan Meissner. That's how you... Yeah. I don't know how to say that. So yeah, that was the author of that book. And then Penelope J. Stokes is the author of the Blue Bottle Club. So the next one is this book I got at a half price, my most recent trip to a half price clearance sale, which was I think like last fall. So like 2018, yeah, October 2018. And this book was actually originally in my friend Jessica's cart. Like, she originally picked it out and was like, oh, this looks kind of interesting, and she was kind of holding on to it. And then when she, decided which books that she was actually going to get, she was like, do you want this? Do you actually want to get it and see if it's any good? And then if it's any good for you, if you actually do like it, can I borrow it? And I was like, yeah, it looks good. And so this is called Night Song by Tricia Goyer. I don't know if that's how you say it. So what really drew me to this book was that it is based during the Holocaust. And, here recently, within the past, year and a half, I have visited the beautiful, amazing country of Israel twice. And before I went the first time, I actually watched Schindler's List. And I think that that's a movie that everybody needs to see before they die. Because I think that everybody needs to know what happened. Not just about World War II, but the Holocaust. Like, they actually need to know the story of the Holocaust. And I know that, Schindler's List does dramatize some things, but for the most part, I do know that Steven Spielberg wanted it to be as historically accurate as possible as to what happened. And I've done a lot of other research into the Holocaust. I've also been to the actual Holocaust Museum in Israel, the Yad Vashem, and it's a very sobering experience. And I kind of wanted to get some books on that, like, especially, even reading, like, fiction books. There's a few books that have come out now. There's, I heard of this book that came out, it's pretty popular, it's like a New York Times bestseller. It's called, I think, like, The Tattooist of Auschwitz, or something like that. I don't know if I'm going to pick that up. I don't actually own it, but it looked interesting, though. Like, the story looked interesting. But when I saw this, though, it was at the clearance sale, and I noticed that it was about the Holocaust. I was like, you know what? That actually looks kind of good. I think I might try that. And it's one in a series, I believe. Or it's not necessarily in a series, like... Okay, wait, here. Hold on. Okay. So apparently there's, like, other stories that this author wrote during the time of World War II and the Holocaust. But, like, it's not necessarily, like, one first book, second book, third book. It's like, you can read them in any order that you want. It's not necessarily an continuing storyline where you have to have read this book in order to continue with the next book. But this looked interesting, and this one was specifically written about a Jew in a concentration camp. And from what I can see, from what I've read, it's about this young Jewish boy named Jacob, or Jacob. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. I wish I knew how to pronounce names properly. But it's spelled Jakub. But I know technically, like, if we were just to say it in proper English, it's Jacob. That's basically what it is. But he's a violinist. He plays the violin, and he gets taken off to this death camp. I don't think it's necessarily Auschwitz. It's another camp, from what I'm seeing here. And then, like, there's another story intertwined in this one. It's about, apparently, the daughter of an Austrian diplomat. Ooh, this sounds interesting. And she has an American fiancé that, like, tries to help find her. Because I think she gets captured by Nazis, too, or something. So it's, like, it's kind of it looks like it's two stories mixed with one, and they, like, cross paths and stuff like that, which I love when books do that. So it looks like a very interesting read. it's probably going to be very hard to get through because it is about the Holocaust. So I'm expecting to probably be maybe a little traumatized, definitely cry. But, I think it's worth it to, it's more worth it to learn from that history than to just ignore it. So yeah, looks like a very interesting. This book I'm just going to kind of gloss over because lots of people know about it. I got this at a half price clearance sale because it was kind of on my list, sort of, but not necessarily. I was just like, if I find it, I'll get it because I kind of just want a copy of it, and I've seen the movie dozens of times, but I've never read the book. Maybe I'll eventually get around to reading the book. It's The Help by Catherine Stockett. That's, yeah, I already know exactly what it's about. I've seen the movie like a whole bunch of times. I love the movie, and, I probably will eventually get around to reading the book, and, I probably need to actually take this off of that shelf, because technically, since I know, the story so well, I technically could take it off of my, to be read shelf. But it was actually, anyway, I got it because, I kind of wanted my own copy of The Help, and also it's a very nice paperback copy, too. It's very nice. There's no bent edges. It was a very beautiful, beautifully whole copy. So I liked it. So yeah, that's just kind of glossing over that. The next book was actually on my list, and I was so happy because I found it. My friend Jessica actually helped me find it. I actually found another copy of it, and it wasn't in too good condition, but I was like, I'll hold on to it just in case I don't find a better looking copy. And Jessica was able to find me a better copy, and I was so happy. It's this one. So it's called Crossroads, and it's by William Paul Young. He, if you don't know who he is, he wrote The Shack, and if you don't know what that is, then, it's okay. I mean, The Shack was pretty popular, actually. It's probably his most popular book. The Shack, just to kind of recap what it is, it's about a man whose daughter dies. Well, actually doesn't just die. She gets murdered, like kidnapped and like brutally murdered, and nobody knows who does it. And the only bit of evidence they find is just like her torn, tattered, blood-stained dress is found in this abandoned shack in the woods. And yeah, it's kind of creepy. Like, he really does kind of good. It's kind of like the first like few chapters of The Shack literally is kind of like this crime mystery novel, and you're just like, oh my god, who did it? Who killed this guy's daughter and stuff? And so, and then, but it's a Christian book, and so then like it kind of switches, and the guy one day, Mackenzie is the main character of that book. He, it's been a couple of years. He gets this like ominous, mysterious note in the mail, and there's no address on it. It's just a little card that says, hey, if you meet me up at the shack, I would like to spend some time with you, signed, Papa. And and Mackenzie is just like baffled because he's just like, who the heck wrote this? And he knows that like, his family believes in God and everything, and even he believes in God, but he doesn't have a very good relationship with God, and his wife does, and her name for God is Papa. And so when he sees that it's signed Papa, he immediately is just like, maybe God wrote this. But at the same time, he kind of worries, like, what if the guy who murdered my daughter has been like watching us and spying on us secretly and knows this and is trying to lure me into the woods or something. So, he's not sure. So anyway, long story short, he decides to go to the shack, and he spends a weekend there with these three representations of the Holy Trinity. It's like these three, it's God in like three different human forms. And so Papa is represented by like this black woman, and then the Holy Spirit is represented by kind of this like beautiful kind of Asian woman, and then you obviously have Jesus, and he's represented by this Middle Eastern Jewish man. And a lot of people gave the book, a lot of people loved the book, but even more people, especially from the Christian community, the very religious Christian community, came down hard on the book because they were just like, there's no way God would do that. Why are you saying that God is like a black woman? And I'm just like, I read the book and I'm just like, he is not trying to say that God is a black woman, or God is this, or God is that. The whole reason why God appears to Mackenzie or Mac in that form is because Mackenzie grew up with a very abusive father, and, you know, seeing God the Father as a black woman was better for him in that certain point of his life, because he wouldn't have been able to handle an actual male father figure. You know, he was better with like a mama figure. And, you know, and God, he's not just a father to us, he's also a mama to us. And so anyway, I'm getting off on a tangent, but anyway, the story is that God brings him to the shack to get some inner healing and all that cool stuff, and also to help find out what happened to his daughter. And he does find out, but I'm not going to spoil it because you should read it, and it's a really good read. And so I liked it so much that I wanted to get some of his other books. There's another book called Eve, but I have not been able to really find a good copy for it for really cheap yet. Maybe someday, but I was able to find Crossroads for $2. This is the nice, awesome hardcover edition. And it just looked really cool because the story just sounds really awesome. And Jesus is in it. Like, literally, the character of Jesus actually appears to this guy. And apparently this guy is, like, a really big jerk. And he's, like, mean to everybody. And he's also, like, terrible to his wife. And so he, like, goes into, like, a coma or something. And Jesus visits him and is like, I'm here to help you. My mom actually read this before I did. Well, I mean, I haven't read it yet still, but I let my mom read it and she loved it, and apparently it's a very good read, so I can't wait to try it. So yeah, Crossroads, everybody. I'll let you know if I do read it. The next book on my list, this is the second to last, we're almost done, is this series. It is called The Song of Aaron, and I actually saw this book, specifically this copy, at my local library, and I kind of saw the cover and the story sounded really interesting, and I don't know, I think I was just attracted to like the ring. I like jewelry, I like shiny things. I thought it was cool. And you know, it's like it's a story about, you know, these Irish immigrants, and I love Ireland and I love Scotland, and I was like, this sounds cool. So I kind of put it on my list of like books to read, and I ended up finding this really great copy at the half-price clearance sale. I think last year, the same sale that I got Crossroads at. And so yeah, B.J. Hoff, up here. Yeah, there we go. B.J. Hoff is the author of this series, and apparently this specific book or edition actually has 2 books in one. So The Song of Aaron is actually the name of the series of 2 books that B.J. Hoff wrote, and this is the compilation of those 2 books. So book 1 is called Cloth of Heaven, and then book 2 is called Ashes and Lace. And so instead of, you know, getting 2 separate books, I just got one whole book that has this really cool cover. So I like it. You know, I think that was a pretty cool find. And so I can't wait to read that and see if it's any good, you know. And then last but not least, I actually found this at the same half-price clearance sale as Crossroads and Song of Aaron. This one is actually pretty much my only non-fiction book that I have. I may have like at least 2, maybe 3 other non-fiction books on my, you know, my like books to read list, but this one in particular I wanted to find, and I didn't think that I was going to find it. I wasn't, like, and I actually wasn't even looking for it, and I just saw it on the table, and, like, I think it was, like, the non-Christian, non-fiction Christian books or something like that, or, like, just non-fiction general, and it was this book. So, it's called Let's Roll by Lisa Beamer, and so I'm one of those people that's, like, I'm very interested in learning stories from 9/11, and I think it's because I was so young when it happened that I feel like, you know, like, I remember when it happened, but I was, like, you know, I was, like, 4, almost 5 when it happened, so it's, like, I didn't, you know, take in much of the information of, like, what was going on. And so as I got older, I became more and more interested in 9/11, and I wanted to learn everything I could about it. And so, you know, I tried to. I looked up everything I could on it, and, you know, my mom actually kept a few magazines and newspapers that were published, you know, newspapers from, you know, the actual day of and, like, the day after. You know, she saved them because, you know, she knew that, you know, we'd want to see them someday, you know, and kind of find answers. Excuse me. And so when I was looking for material on 9/11, I found this. And Lisa Beamer is actually the wife of a man named Todd Beamer. And he was one of the passengers on United Airlines Flight 93. That was the only plane that did not make its destination on 9/11 because they were the only ones who actually found out what was happening. They were actually able to get in contact with their families and find out, oh, 2 other planes have been hijacked and they've hit the World Trade Center, and now we're just getting reports of the Pentagon. And then, like, the people on Flight 93, they realized, oh, is that what's going to happen to us? And because they had that extra time, they were able to not only, you know, call their families and say goodbye, but they were able, you know, they were able to actually come up with a plan. They were the only ones whose plane did not reach their destination because those passengers, they decided to take a stand, and they were like, you know what, we are not going to let this evil reach its mark. We're not going to let it hurt our nation even more. And so they actually were the only ones who were able to do something. And Lisa Beamer's husband, Todd, he was the one, like, that's actually why the book is called Let's Roll. He, and I think in the very last phone call that he ever made, and the last words that were ever recorded of him saying, because they were actually, I think, recorded on one of the phone calls that he made, it was either to Lisa or to it was one of those air traffic controllers, I believe. He was on the phone with one of them, and he was telling them what was going on, and he was like, okay, I gotta go. And he told his wife he loved him, and then I think he was talking to the air traffic controller or something like that, and someone on the plane with him was like, hey, you ready? Are we gonna do this? And he was like, yeah, let's roll. And that was the very last words that were heard over the phone by somebody else outside of the plane. Those are the last words they ever heard him say. And that those words have, you know, they've stuck with, you know, millions of Americans that have heard that story. And that's what he's most famous for, is that term now, is let's roll. And when he said that, obviously he meant let's do this. That was when they charged the cabin and they tried to take the plane back. And so, you know, so yeah, it's kind of a very, you know, it's a story that's very close to me, even though, you know, obviously I've never met the family or anything, or, you know, I just know about them from that. You know, it still hits home because it's a fellow American, you know? And it's a, you know, 9/11 is something that brought us all together, just like how, you know, the JFK assassination brought a lot of people together. You know, it's just, whenever tragedy happens, people band together, that it brings them together, and it just, you know, it makes us stronger, you know, and we kind of, you know, we just rise up out of that hurt even stronger. And so yeah, that's why I got this book. It's because I wanted to read it, you know, to have it, you know, and it's because it's the personal story of the wife of one of these victims. And he wasn't just a victim, like, he was somebody who you know, he wasn't willing to be a victim. You know, he tried to overcome this. He tried to stop it. And, you know, and even though, you know, he and, you know, no one survived on that plane, I think they did win. You know, they accomplished their goal. They stopped, you know, that plane from reaching its goal. And, you know, that's why it means so much to me. So yeah, and that's why I wanted to get this book. And I was so happy that I was able to find it. I wasn't even really looking for it, because I think I had borrowed it, I had it on hold at my library. I was going to borrow it, and then I just saw it on the table at the half-price clearance sale, and I was like, well, you know, it's only $2, I might as well get it, and then I'll just tell the library, like, hey, sorry, I don't actually need to borrow it. So, you know, that's my last book that I got at that sale. Or that's the last book that I have in this pile next to me of all the books that I have yet to read that I've bought at the half-price clearance sale. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time.